Thank you so much. Welcome everyone to Session 2 Resilience Programs. Please remember to share your thoughts on social media by using the hashtag Police Resilience and tagging at Resilience Symp, S-Y-M-P, short for Symposium, on Twitter. And so I'm Dr. Stephanie Conn, former police officer, now psychologist in Portland, Oregon for first responder psychology. I'm also the author of Increasing Resilience in Police and Emergency Personnel. I'm the moderator for this section, the resilience programs, and I'll introduce you to each of the speakers at their turn. You can learn more about the session and the speakers, including links to further information and reading relating to the presentation at resilienceSymposium.org. So our first speaker is Dr. Jeff Thompson, a friend of mine. Dr. Thompson is the Mental Health and Wellness Coordinator for the New York City Police Department and an Adjunct Associate Research Scientist at Columbia University.
Thank you very much. I'm going to share my screen real quick. There we go. And Stephanie, you can see it?
Yep.
Okay.
Got it.
Excellent. So thank you. And aside of being on the background, I help and put this together. I'm just the whole symposium. I'm fortunate to be part of this panel. And again, Stephanie, thank you for moderating it. And we can't have all the speakers we wanted for this particular session, but again, I highly recommend your book, and that's not a plug or a promotion, whatever. It's just very helpful. And we're talking about resilience programs. And I'll say, and I'm using my precious time on purpose to say this, I don't look at any of this as competition at all. We're all on the same team here. And whether you're policing or outside policing, let me just start with the idea of what we're here to do and why are we talking about resilience. Every one of us deserves to have positive mental health. And that sure as hell includes police, because police are human beings too. And if we're here to share tips and information like the previous session on research, if it's going to help police be better at what they do, well, wait a minute, if we're human beings, that then goes beyond just police and other first responders, frontline workers, and no matter what you do for a living, and no matter what your age is or your background. So I just wanted to be clear with that. The whole idea is, and again, adding from the previous session too, and what you hear from my fellow panelists is resilience isn't about hearing it. So I really hope you're going to enjoy this panel session. Apparently I have an accent, which I haven't heard or understood yet. Don't laugh, Stephanie, please. But it's the idea of let this spark you to want to do something. It's just reading, watching, listening. That doesn't make you resilient. Hopefully that motivates you to want to do it, but it takes action. And we have to make sure those actions that we are recommended are based on and grounded in science and research. A lot of the work I'm doing, I'll share with you, is more personal resilience. A lot of resilience needs to happen also when we talk about specific to police and at the agency level. But there's, as you see, an individual agency, but we look at it when we talk about police. A resilient officer, you add them together, that makes the agency more effective. And when we talk about police and specifically, what does that do? It makes them better at the job that they need to do. And what is the job of the police officer? To protect their communities. So this is more than that cliche. This is legitimately the win-win for everybody. There's plenty of stuff to argue about right now. I don't think this is one of them. If you want to argue, I guess you can email me later because I'm just going to roll on to the next slide. With the particular program I'm sharing with, there's 4 pillars to resiliency. And again, I'm going to let you know, I think you'll hear a lot of similarities between what I'm saying and the other panelists. And that's a good thing, because when it's backed by research and data, it sounds similar. There's just different approaches. So the 4 pillars that I talk about are awareness, wellness, purpose, and positivity. We heard Dr. Sullivan talk about each of these earlier as well. Awareness is, again, the cognitive reappraisal, reframing is one example of that, but also being aware of our thoughts, being aware of our emotions and feelings, and also then being aware of our actions and the interconnectivity of those. Wellness, physical health, mental health. And the question I pose to all of you right now is, especially the people that are physically healthy, that's awesome, amazing. You've got to ask yourself every day, what are your mental push-ups? What are your mental sit-ups that you're doing? Purpose, having goals in life for the individual, but also grander. So it's great to have personal goals, but also you got to make sure those goals are helping others, not working to their detriment. Positivity, again, we've heard it before earlier, but let me reiterate, it's the idea of realistic optimism, how important that is, and also surrounding yourself with like-minded people. The science to practice, I already just covered this. And these are some of the neuroscience-y type terms that I've instituted into my particular program. And again, it's all of these taking what the research and data says. And as we heard earlier too, it's the idea of making sure it's adapted to specific professions and people, because it's not a one size fits all. And the data shows that as well. So specifically, the program that I want to talk to you about, Warrior 21, let me just say there's not a slide on this. Warrior 21 was originally designed and created for policing, yet it's been modified and adapted to anybody in any backgrounds, which I think is slightly unique to maybe some of the other programs. It's for everyone and anyone. A couple thousand people have already done it. It's only been around for just over a year. The warrior concept, for people that are looking to pick arguments or just discussions, people say, well, that term is toxic, potentially using it with policing. Right now, as a quick quasi-interactive activity, take 10 seconds, generally thinking about the word warrior. What do you connote? What is your definition of warrior? Take 10 seconds to think about how you would define and describe what a warrior is. That was 9 seconds, good enough. Whatever those terms are that you came up with in your head, take all of that and turn it inwards. Whatever that mindset, fighter, never give up attitude, all that needs to be directed. That's why the program is called Warrior 21. The uniqueness aspect of it, and this was designed before COVID, yet I think it's helpful in the sense that it's all done through Google Classroom on your mobile device. And one of the unique things is we cut out the middleman. You're doing it on your own journey, but you're also doing it's cohort based. So it's a blend of both of those models. There is no train the trainer. What happens is on Google Classroom, you're in a private room, you sign up for it, you get a notification every single morning. Warrior 21, why 21? It's 21 days of practice. So each morning you get a notification of your daily assignment or practices. And what are we talking about? What are these practices? There's a keyword associated with each of the 21 days. For example, day 4 is grit. What happens is when you get that reading assignment, there'll be a quote on the word grit, 5 minutes of controlled breathing practices. There's a variety of different ones that we try out. 5 minutes, why? We think that's reasonable. Is 5 minutes as good as 20 minutes? No, but 5 minutes is better than 4 minutes. 5 minutes is better than 0 minutes, and trying to make it realistic. The other thing I'll say too is Warrior 21 is designed to be an appetizer. It's 21 days, and it's got to be realistic with the impact and the changes you think it'll have. Yes, the data has shown that it has impacted people, but it's your start, it's your appetizer. Sort of like this panel session is your appetizer to get more on each of these programs. Then after you do those 5 minutes of controlled breathing, it's a short research-backed article, but written for the general public audience and a reflection on that article. And again, I'll just say, for example, the article is roughly 2 pages long, and it's heavily intense, quoting and citing other people, including Stephanie in her book, and other people, but designed not to be heavy research academic-y. It's more of, hey, here are snippets and little tidbits of information to pique your interest. What you see on that for your daily practices, that's all so far recommended to do as early or as close to when you first wake up each morning. We run the program usually Monday to Fridays. We give people off on the weekends just to give them a break from it. And also, if you fall off a day or two here, it's that idea of being fair to yourself. Things come up, you can catch back up with the rest of the group. The evening, every evening before you go to bed. So this is the bookend. You do everything else in the very beginning. Every night before you go to bed, every participant gets one of these, a Warrior 21 notebook. They keep this with them over the course of the 21 days. And I'll tell you, I'm the first one that realized how important gratitude practice is as also a practitioner while I was doing the research. And I was dismissive of it until I realized how effective it really is. Very briefly, the gratitude practice, every night you got to write 3 things in that notebook. One thing that made you happy that day, one thing that you did nice for somebody, and one thing that somebody did nice for you. And I know a lot of people are saying, oh, well, I'd fill it all out in the first day in the notebook. You're not allowed to repeat yourself with any of those over the 21 days. And for anybody saying, oh, I do a lot of nice things each day, well, pick one, think about it, write it down. And there's a heck of a lot of research that shows how effective it is, because ultimately perspective shapes reality, and it's the doing aspect. One of the studies, and there's the links to the 2 articles that were published on the page. Overall, people seem to be pretty satisfied with the program. What did they think of the breathing practices? They liked it. I like it. I do it. That's why I wear my Apple Watch to remind me to breathe. Here's just some, so it was quantitative and qualitative data. The program was helpful. It's something I'll continue to use. And this is from participants, not just policing. So it's policing, first responders, I think 9 different countries. It's a variety of people. You see that blue one, somebody, we did it with some people in a police academy with an agency. Gratitude practices, I know me, I set these time limits. I don't know why I did that. It's really hard to fit all these slides in, guys, just a heads up, but I will get through with my perseverance. The one thing I do want to show how, okay, so we looked at other specific things in feedback here. You can just have a quick look at this. I can share this with anybody. It's in those papers. And my key thing, I'm showing this here, it's one of the issues, and this is what I like to talk about, what's not working with the program. Not everybody does it. Not everybody sticks with it. And I know I've talked to each of the other panelists about their programs. I think that's still the missing link, at least for me, in the work I'm trying to do. People love all this stuff. It's just we got to get them to do it. And I still think we've got to do better on that, or at least I'll speak for myself. I've got to do better on that. The one study we did was specific to COVID-19. And it helped people get through it. And again, there's nothing new or unique here about this, my program, other than I think I'm doing it through Google Classroom. The 21 aspect, there is hundreds of 21-day programs out there. The reasons they're not called, or it's not called Warrior 212, is because it's hard enough to get somebody to do it for 21 days. 212 isn't realistic. The thing here too is just don't wait for the perfect day. And I see I'm being mindful here. Don't wait for the perfect day. Make today the right day. Let one of us, any of us, or collectively all of us spark you as an individual, no matter who you are on this planet. You deserve the positive mental health, and you already have the resilience in you. Let's just work on enhancing it and make sure it's science-backed ways. And especially during these times, including police out there, to any police personnel. And when I say police, I mean civilians and police as well. We're all part of that blue family, but we're part of a greater family too, because we're all on this planet. We need to look after each other. And if we do a great job of helping others, we got to make sure we start with looking after ourselves. And I want to thank you, Stephanie, and the other panelists on here. It's cool to be able to share this, and I'm pushing it further. And I'm also incredibly happy to hear from all of you and the great programs that you're all doing. So Stephanie, thank you.
Yes, of course. Thank you so much, Jeff. Audience, please remember additional information is available at it. Our next speaker is Dr. Keith Dobson. Dr. Dobson is a professor of clinical psychology at the University of Calgary and a senior researcher with the Mental Health Commission of Canada, where he has developed, helped to develop and evaluate programs, including the one that he will be speaking to us about today.
Right. Great, thank you for that introduction, and thank you to the organizers for inviting me, and I'm going to try to share my screen as well. Oops. So I'm going to be, can everybody see it okay? Yeah, great. So I'm talking about a program which we initially called the Road to Mental Readiness, and I'll talk about where that came from and how we've modified it since. But this work has actually been done through the Mental Health Commission of Canada, which for those of you who are in Canada, you probably know about it. For those of you in other countries, this is a federally funded agency, operates outside of Health Canada. It's funded by our federal health agency though, and it's an independent, not-for-profit organization which does a whole range of things in the area of mental health. So those of you who are interested could perhaps go to that website. But I've been involved in a program called Opening Minds, which is the stigma reduction and wellness promotion agency basically within the Mental Health Commission of Canada. I'm funded though through the University of Calgary in Canada, and certainly if you want to look me up, I'm happy to answer any questions after this presentation is over. So very briefly, the Road to Mental Readiness program was actually adopted from our Department of National Defense. When we began working with the Opening Minds program and the Mental Health Commission of Canada, we were looking for wellness programs in the context of employment. And we looked around for evidence-based programs. We found this one that the Department of National Defense had been developing. Actually had done some work with Navy SEALs as well in the US, just for your information. And they had been using this program for some time for pre-deployment and post-deployment work within the military. We looked at the program program. We thought that it had some positive attributes, although we wanted to modify it. So we got their permission to do modification, and we started working with first responder groups. And in fact, our very first group that worked with us was the Calgary Police Service. But then since then, we've modified the program and we've adapted it and used it with pretty much every police force in Canada now. So it's got huge pickup. We've literally done tens of thousands of deliveries of this particular program. It's also since been modified for other first responder groups. It's been picked up in Australia as in fire, for example. We also modified it then for the general workplace. So there are some principles that are involved in this program that are very broadly applicable, which I'll just talk about briefly. But as I said, we've had more than 240 fire services, fire EMS picked up, and we've had partners right across our country. The program objectives are to reduce stigma. So this is one element that we thought was in the original program not as well developed as it could be. So we've certainly increased that. We've talked about mental health and mental illness. So we provide some definitions. I'll give you a sense of what that looks like in a moment. We talk about signs of mental distress. So helping people to become aware of signs and symptoms that they might experience. We use a continuum model. So this is a color-coded mental health continuum model. So it's not diagnostic, but it talks about people functioning. We use a color code, green, yellow, orange, red, to signify different levels of functioning. And then we talk about signs and symptoms that people might have that would help them to recognize where they are. We talk about mental illness in the workplace and, including police, for example. There's a second component of the program. So one version is for frontline workers and the other is for leaders and the leader responsibilities that might happen. So for example, in the context of police, we have a part that we talk about, which is the response for when there's trauma in the workplace and how a leader needs to take certain steps to help people recognize their mental health and take steps to build their resiliency if necessary. And then we talk about skills to build mental health, of course. The components of the program are information, so there is knowledge, skills building. We focus directly on stigma. We talk about how to talk about mental health and mental illness, and we provide some ways to do that. We use a lot of video-based contact. So one of the things that we've learned from the research is that contact-based education is a very powerful form of communication. So what this means is that having the people who are directly involved or implicated by different situations talk about their experience. So we literally have videos of police officers who've talked about their challenges in mental health and the things that they've done to rebuild their resiliency and to develop themselves. So they talk explicitly about this. We also try to use the train the trainer model. So what we try to do is go into organizations, have people within the organization get trained in the program, and then they deliver it. Because we believe that, again, having people within an organization deliver the program has more power than having outside people come in and simply deliver. We use this continuum model, which I'll show you in just a second. We focus on what we call the big 4 skills, which again, we adopted from the Department of National Defense, but these are general coping skills that anybody can use in any context. This is the mental health continuum model. And again, there's obviously a lot more components underneath it. So we talk about different signs and symptoms. So feelings, physiological effects, behaviors, thoughts, again, different aspects of the continuum model. But basically it talks about this idea that, we all are on this continuum. We all have a different level of functioning and that it moves. Some of the values we think of the continuum is that it uses a gradient. So it puts us all there. So again, it's destigmatizing in that regard. It emphasizes the idea that we can move up or down the continuum, that, again, there's a double-headed arrow on the slide, as you can see. So the idea being that, even if we shift up someday into the orange because of some event, we can actually do things to bring ourselves back down the continuum towards the green. It reduces the need for labels. So it's non-diagnostic, although at the red end, it does recognize the idea that people might have diagnosable mental illness, but it simply says a color code. So people can use it as a sort of a common language for talking about where they are. And also built into the program is the idea that there are different things you can do to maintain your health or bring it back to the healthy if necessary. Some other features, it has the primary version, which is a half-day workshop, the leadership version, which is a full-day workshop. We've got manuals, PowerPoint slides, videos, workbooks, all of the accoutrements that you need to run a program of this type. We have Train the Trainer program, and like I said, we've actually evaluated the program pretty consistently. One of the nice things for me of the Opening Minds program for the Mental Health Commission of Canada is that there's been a strong commitment to doing evaluation. We've also done some supplementary programs. So we've got materials to remind people about the program. We've worked on booster modules because we recognize that a one-time workshop is probably not going to be sufficient. And we've developed a family package. So this is for family members of first responders so that they can also understand some of the challenges that people go through and some of the things that they can do to support first responders. We've done extensive evaluation. Our general design is post designs before and after the workshops, and then we do 3-month follow-ups to find out whether or not the program content seems to be sticking. Our primary outcomes are stigma reduction, because we think that that's a critical feature for helping people develop their mental health. Resiliency, which of course is why I'm in this panel, so resiliency skills. And then we look at also mental health knowledge and intentions. Very briefly, I'm going to tell you about a whole series of results that we have. If you're interested in more, if you go to the summer special edition of the Canadian Journal of Psychiatry, you'll actually find the write-up of this result that I'm going to be talking about. But we're doing ongoing evaluation. So this is a meta-analysis or a summary of 16 different implementations of the R2MR program in 5 different provinces, cut across first responder groups. Although I can tell you that police have similar results to the other first responder groups that we've looked at. Over 4,600 participants, as you can see here, with matched pre-post data, and 814 with long-term follow-up data. And you can see here that, in fact, in this particular analysis, about 2,600 of the responders were police. So most of the data, in fact, from this analysis are from policing. What we see is from pre to post, significant increases in resiliency. And that, so this is the first 2 slides or the first 2 columns on the left side of this slide. And that when we look at the long term, the 3-month follow-up results at 3 months, the yellow column, the resiliency scores go down somewhat, but they're still significantly better than the baseline scores. So even though we know police generally are actually quite resilient, we can actually see demonstrable increases in self-reported resilience. We also see significant reductions in stigma. So again, from pre to post, during the workshop, we see reductions which are significant, and these tend to maintain over the 3-month follow-up. When we look across all of the groups, we also find that there's increased knowledge, openness, and intention to help other people. So you can see across the bottom of this slide 4 different questions that we ask people. So how do I understand about mental health? Do I plan to seek help? Will I ask my colleagues, and so on? And again, we can see significant increases in all of these dimensions, which are signs, again, that people are picking up the idea that they need to not just take action for themselves, but to support others in the workplace. We also ask at the 3-month follow-up whether or not people have been using the skills that they learned. And 60% in this particular sample said they had. And when we asked them what they used, they said that it was the big 4 skills. These include breathing, the way that you think, mental preparation, and so on. They also say that they provided support to others. They're more willing to talk about mental health issues. They use the mental health continuum, and so on. But for the first responder groups, the group that are the skills that really seem to be important for them were the big 4 coping skills that we talked about in the program, or integrated into the program, which again are ways to build resilience and help people maintain their mental health. Oh, sorry, that's my phone going off. We also do qualitative interviews of participants. And again, I won't read all of these just in the interest of time, but we are interested in looking at the way that people experience
Dr. Dobson, that's your cue that you have 1 minute, although I'm not the one calling.
Okay. Yeah.
What would your takeaways for the audience be in the next moment?
Yeah, I'm just about finished. Thank you.
Perfect.
But we do qualitative interviews. I can tell you also that we've done focus groups for the people that present and receive the program to make sure that the program is actually meeting people's needs as much as possible. So overall, again, we see positive effects. It seems to be that the program sticks, you know, that once people take the program, they get ongoing benefit. We've heard evidence, again, from the interviews that this is a catalyst for change. We don't see this as the end of the programming at all. Again, we think booster sessions are critical. We also think that organizational change, you know, within policing is critical to help not just reinforce the skills, but actually take them further and build them into every day. We're doing several things for next steps. So one of the things I mentioned is we've rebranded the program. The Department of National Defense actually asked us to stop using the R2MR logo. So we now call it the Working Mind for First Responders. We are evaluating the booster modules that I talked about earlier. We've developed an online version as a response to COVID-19, so this is available now. We're doing international translation and use, so looking at various partners, like I mentioned, Australia, and we're very keen on doing further trials. One of my wishes is to do a randomized trial to find out if, in fact, the R2MR program, or the Working Mind for First Responders, as we call it now, has sticking benefit. So very quickly, that's a rundown of the program. And I think I pretty much stuck to my 12 minutes, maybe a bit more.
No, you're perfect. You're perfect. Awesome. Thank you, Dr. Dobson. To our next speaker, which is Dr. Michael Wiltsey. Dr. Wiltsey is a lieutenant with the Burlington County Prosecutor's Office in New Jersey, a licensed psychologist, and a faculty member at the New Jersey City University.
Yes, thank you very much. I'm going to try to share my screen with everyone here. And so thank you very much. This is incredible to be part of this. And Jeff, I can't believe you pulled this off, man. It's really amazing to be a part of this and you know, to present a background and history about the New Jersey Resiliency Program for law enforcement to everybody in attendance. So we'll get right into it. And in the spirit of positive psychology, I want to talk about meaning and purpose. And so meaning and purpose for this program for us here locally in Burlington County, New Jersey, began around May 7th, 2015, when we lost Detective Sergeant Ed Zabriskie. And Ed was a friend of mine and colleague. He's an outstanding detective and supervisor, and he's pictured here with his wonderful family. And when we lost Ed, everybody was devastated, from his family to his extended Blue family. And speaking with his wife, Rachel, and the leadership at, here at Burlington County's union, we said, we need to do something about this. We need to come up with some kind of program or something. And we stumbled upon resilience as a result of those early conversations. So after we lost Ed, in the next 15-month period, we lost 2 other officers to suicide in Burlington County. And this was unprecedented in the county for pretty much at least a decade or more previous. We also lost about 37 officers between 2016 and 2019 in New Jersey, according to bluehelp.org. So what happened was this promoted both people within our own agency and the surrounding agencies to say, hey, again, we need to start focusing on mental health wellness trainings and resources to try to prevent this from happening in the future. And what was really interesting about this is that the discussion was really strong, really energetic, and it came from rank and file right on up to the top level commanders and leadership. And that's really a take-home message about my presentation, is having that buy-in from the top is really super important to have resilience or other wellness programming become a priority. I want to touch briefly on the timeline and history of our program, although it's really long. So I'm going to touch real briefly on some highlights. So it really initiated around April of 2016 by officers in Maple Shade Police Department in Burlington County. They began looking at the resilience training model offered by the Army, and that's because they were served in the military and had been exposed to that training. And so they came up with an idea and said, and presented it to their leadership, hey, how about we adapt this program to law enforcement? Is it possible to do that? And so from that, a working group was formed with the people that are the agencies and organizations on this slide. And began to think about adapting this program in the military, mentioned by Dr. Seligman earlier, and trying to adapt that to law enforcement. Well, about a year later, a member of the working group found out that there was already such a program in existence, and this program was a partnership between the FBI National Academy Associates and the United States Air Force. And they had partnered together to basically adapt the comprehensive airman fitness model for the Air Force and their resiliency program for law enforcement use. And so a larger working group is formed, and then in June 2018, we held a resilience symposium, much smaller than yours, Jeff, but pretty big for New Jersey at the time, at Stockton University in New Jersey. And it was co-hosted by Acadia Healthcare and the FBI National Academy Associates. Came down and offered a 3-day train the trainer program where we trained 23 master instructors in New Jersey in the comprehensive officer training program offered by the FBI National Academy Associates. In December 2018, Mercer County lost an officer to suicide, and our Attorney General, Attorney General Graywall, had a relationship, had met this officer, and so this affected him personally. That prompted the Attorney General to really start to focus in on, as well on we needed to do something in New Jersey to prevent future suicides and looking at suicide awareness programs, but also interested in mental health wellness programs. And he became aware of the resilience work that we had started to do. And in August 2019, just 3 short years of this timeline, if you will, we went from an idea to an actual statewide directive issued by the Attorney General requiring all 35,000 law enforcement officers to receive resilience training.
Sorry, Mike, I'm just jumping in one quick second because I think Dr. Ramey, your audio issue is fixed because we can hear you. Disaster averted.
Okay, thank you.
Resilience always prevails. Dr. Mike, back to you.
Thanks, Jeff. So here's a basic outline of that training. Okay, it's the comprehensive officer resilience training program. Our training program in New Jersey is modeled off of that program. So there are 12 lessons within that training program. And we've already heard a number of descriptions of resilience today in this symposium, and a lot of the people who are familiar with resilience trainings and models that are all across the country and probably and written about elsewhere, they fall in line with all of the other work, and it's based on empirical evidence as to what improves resilience. So they're listed here, and just briefly, lesson 2, counting blessings, right? We heard Dr. Jeff talk about how important it is for gratitude, accomplishing goals, balancing your thinking, focusing on how we interpret the situation and how that interpretation or perspective, as Jeff says, affects how we respond to that. We talk about physical resilience, acceptance strategies, breathing, incorporate all of those into the training program. So it's 12 modules, and the program is aligned it's a 3-day training program. So it's a very shortened training program of a lot of information. But what's really important is not only do you receive information about how to develop these skills, but we engage in practical exercises where you actually practice these skills. And you learn ways to actually take these topics and apply them so that you can actually utilize the resilience skills. Another key component of this training that I think is important for our audience to understand is that it's about those breakout sessions, if you will, or those times that we're actually working on skills and talking, that we build relationships, which of course is another part of resilience, right? So we're building relationships within the training. People come together, these officers come together. Officers who maybe go in there like this and, at first and say, what's this all about? Wind up crying and hugging and just being, emotionally connected to this, which I think is a really important component of how the model builds on itself, that we can start talking about it among each other openly. So those lessons are based off, again, 4 domains that are listed here of resilience: mental, physical, social, and spiritual. And the tenets of each under those domains are sort of what we're trying to target in, or what is targeted in on the training to build those resilience skills. And again, this is all grounded in the research on resiliency. what is important to mention for, in presenting this to everybody out there is that this is not a one agency, one person show. I am a mere humble representative of a lot of work and support and collaboration that went into making this a success. Those agencies are listed here. And ultimately, if it weren't for the Attorney General, who is our highest law enforcement, officer, executive in the state to embrace this and make it a directive, it wouldn't be as successful as it is already and hopefully will continue to become. The training plan, real briefly, for everyone to understand, I'm available. My contact information and other contact information is for more information is obviously out there. I'm trying to do my best to give this to you in 12 minutes. But each agency in New Jersey was to appoint an RPO, a Resiliency Program Officer. So every agency in New Jersey has at least one. That officer's job is to give the training to the agency, to every member of the agency, but also they serve in this sort of pseudo peer support role. And I'll explain about a minute about that in a second. So from the training, what we did was all 21 counties in New Jersey and all state agencies appointed a master trainer. That at least one master trainer. Those master trainers were trained in March 2020, right before COVID happened. And then those master trainers are responsible for training the RPOs. Then the RPOs are responsible for training the agency personnel, all by December 31st of 2022. Now, this peer support sort of hybrid of this model is important. And I think it's also maybe slightly different maybe than some other models or programs. But that resiliency officer is the training officer. They provide resiliency programming and look for other opportunities for other resiliency programming and wellness programming after this program, but also they're there as a point of contact and support for officers in need, officers in crisis, in looking for services. So this person is available to everybody. The whole state has this list, and you can go outside your agency. You don't have to go in your agency. You can go all the way up to North Jersey if I want, and reach out to an RPO up there. So it's a great model of that type of aspect. But we really want that person to be a point of contact. So we linked with Cop to Cop, which is our 24/7 support line here in New Jersey that's existed for a long time and helped many cops, and are much better at linking that officer up with the services they need. So we have a direct line to Cop, and once we could get someone to the help they need, then sort of the resiliency program officer's role would be done there. But providing that link has been essential. And I think it's going to be a key component, hopefully, for future success. Concurrent future plans, we involve the chaplains, family programming, repetitive and ongoing training, networking between these MRTs and RPOs, and of course, future wellness programming. We don't want this to be a one and done training, the 3 days. So the goals, increase resilience, improve mental health wellness, provide support, that peer support role, change agency culture, and save an officer's life. I can tell you that I believe these things are happening anecdotally. We hear information that officers are being saved, they're calling, they're getting the help they need, and the agency culture is changing. We're seeing leadership embrace officers in need. We're hoping to have more empirical evidence. My colleague, Dr. Salfati from John Jay College, and I have initiated a study. So we're going to be looking at the impact of this resilience training on individual and organizational factors. Our contact information is there. Key takeaways and resources, partnerships and collaboration. We need to, work together. This would not have come without everyone getting together in New Jersey to do this. Rob Zeepiel is our Chief Resiliency Officer. His email is there. He's more than happy to share any information with you. We will give you our program for free if you ask for it. The same with the FBI National Academy Associates. Keep that in mind. We developed and adapted our training off of theirs. They will give their training. Reach out to them if that's something that you think would be important. I'm happy to provide contact for our master trainers, RPOs, the people that went through kind of getting this training together. And of course, Cop to Cop is there as that peer support role and discussing how we molded these two programs together. I just wanted to mention also, we created Michael Pellegrino from Mercer County, his Chief Resiliency Officer, Resilient Minds on the Front Lines during COVID, another great resource with videos and on other materials on resilience and hope. There's our research contact information. Should you need it, this will be up and available for you all. And I just want to end, so I had obviously some other things to get to if time permitted. but I want to end with where I started, and that is words of Jake Zabriskie, who's pictured here with his dad, who says, you know what, no more sugarcoating this, let's get to work. He wrote a very eloquent and, just meaningful explanation of what it meant for him to lose his dad. And, from his words to all of ours out here watching this, the time is now. We really need this more than ever. And I think this symposium, us collaborating like this, will lead to further wellness in our culture. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you, Dr. Gilson. And last but not least, we now have Dr. Sandra Ramey.
Okay, there we go. Can you hear me this time? Can you hear me okay now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, great. I apologize to the previous speaker if I interrupted. I'm just thrilled we got this fixed. Okay, so good morning to some of you, later day to some of the rest of you. The unabridged information that I'm about to talk about was published recently in a monograph by the COPS office here in the United States. It's also linked to the presentation, so I hope some of you will have interest to look at further information about this. I'm going to talk just about what happened in the initial phase of a project that I did recently with the Milwaukee Police Department. I've worked with Milwaukee for over 20 years now. This is my 4th chief, and I have to say it's my favorite department that I've ever worked with, and I don't make any bones about saying that. They are so progressive and easy to work with that they make my job very easy. Recently, in the past 2 years, we decided to, after years of research to support this, to start a program at the Academy to try to help the recruits learn some resilience training skills before they embarked on their careers. Components of the program included a 2-hour didactic where we delivered about, I would say, 2 to 3 hours of content to recruits in weeks 6 to 8 of the Academy process. Before graduation, we discussed, or at that didactic, we imparted physiology of stress, sources of stress, and how to mitigate the stress that is innate in law enforcement using breathing techniques. Recruits also attended 4 telementor sessions that were conducted by mental health professionals. And the purpose of these sessions was to help the recruits make a connection between what they learned in class and real life situations they would encounter on the job. They used iPads to practice the breathing techniques that we taught them in class, and then they kept those iPads throughout their tenure in the police department. One goal was to improve heart rate variability, which that's just a big fancy term for some people that aren't as familiar with physiology as others. But if your heart rate variability is too low, it can result in all-cause mortality. So it's kind of important that you train people to be able to do breathing techniques that not only will help them relax, but help to increase their heart rate variability. These practice data, along with surveillance data, were triangulated with focus group feedback from the recruits that we collected at 3 months post-graduation. And all of these data were used to evaluate the program and its efficacy and to inform the development of a model for other people that might want to indoctrinate a program like this into their agency. Focus
Dr.
groups
Ramey?
prove, yes?
Are you intending to share your screen with us?
No. No,
okay.
No.
Okay.
No,
Sorry.
I just have one slide, and I'll say that in just a minute.
Sorry.
You can see my video, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
Yes. Yeah, sorry.
These practice data and along with surveillance data were triangulated with focus group feedback. And we talked to the recruits at about 3 months post-graduation, and we used that information to not only hone the program, but develop a model that other agencies might want to use that wanted to indoctrinate something similar into their agency. And by the way, focus groups turned out to be a fabulous way to collect data. We got so much rich feedback. There's not time to go over all of it here, but I highly recommend that face-to-face group setting to be able to collect data to hone your programs. Among the most valuable results that we gleaned from the study were, number one, that job satisfaction was significantly associated with lower perceived stress 3 months after graduation. We also found that the more a recruit practiced with the iPad device correlated with greater improvements in coherence, which the term coherence means the ability of the heart's rhythm pattern to become more ordered. It's another simpler measurement of heart rate variability, but different in some ways. Similar to HRV and other aids in overall health, helped us to improve decision-making and performance in these recruits. Now, athletes have known about these techniques for years, but this is relatively new to police and police recruits. Everyone agreed that the time to start this is at the academy. Another goal of the study, as I said, was to develop a model. And could you cue the slide, please? If you don't have the slide, that's okay. It was just a simplistic model that we developed that starts out just by defining the current level of stress in your department and asking, will training change this model? And although it seems simplistic, and this model is published in the publication I mentioned, to our knowledge, there is not a model to help agencies be able to do this in their departments. Second step in the model was to deliver the training, and we learned that it's important to also deliver this to subgroups like the field training officers at the sergeant level and other people in the academy, other staff other than just the people that are working that day with the recruits. It's also important to weave this training throughout the department and to incorporate it into, for example, active shooter training, other things that they do at the academy and throughout the agency. And finally, we found that that 2 to 3 month period was a really good time to be able to touch base again and evaluate the program. And last of all, the model says that, yes, thank you, Stephanie. The last stage of the model is to make sure that there's feedback given to the people that participated in development of the studies so that they know what was done with the data that they collected. That seems to really spawn people on to be able to want to participate in other studies if they actively know what was done with the data. My take-home messages, I'll just go ahead and say those and then I'll turn it over to Kai Anderson, who is the person that worked with recruits. I would say just start to think about what needs to be changed in your agency, and will training address those changes, and specifically the sources of stress in the agencies. And number two, development of these relationships between departments is really important to me. It's not very cost effective to send people to training for heart math training or other types of resilience training and not share that and be able to get as much bang for your buck as you can with it. An example of that is Madison did a study, they helped Milwaukee with their study, and now Milwaukee can help Chicago, and you can trade resources, and when you've spent money to train people, you can share those resources among agencies. So Kai is, I would say, kind of a one-of-a-kind perfect person to champion this in Milwaukee. And he took this training and now teaches it to all the recruits. He practices heart-focused breathing and other breathing techniques that we taught the recruits daily. He also has worked with the media department in Milwaukee to do resources to show at in-service training. He now is also working with a local community college to formalize training for people in the public so that they know what's going on in Milwaukee. And he really has taken this and continued to champion it throughout the agency and is in the process of trying to take it to officers who have worked with the department for a long time, which that kind of came full circle, because what we heard when we did precursor studies to this from the older officers were, wow, I wish I would have had this at the academy. So it's kind of come full circle now. So I'm really sorry that Kai's not able to connect. He must have been having the same audio problem I did, but I hope at some point you'll be able to hear from him, because really his part of this was the thrust of the talk we wanted to give. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ramey, for your presentation. It is unfortunate that Officer Anderson couldn't make it. I just wanted to announce to everyone that Dr. Dobson's email was listed in the chat, but it will be, Jeff is going to add it to the website. So those of you that were seeking his information to follow up on that, it will be on the website, and he provided it in the chat if you just want to snag it there as well. And so just to try to capture what all that was said today, there was so much information, and again, so much kind of intersection, as Jeff mentioned. When you have a good thing and it's backed by science, you're going to see it coming up in this program, you're going to see it coming up in this program. And what I caught is consistently across the presentations is this resilience is not a one and done kind of scenario. It is something that has to be repeated over time, that you have to make a commitment to, you have to make decisions to do this on a daily basis. You have to connect with other people. It's not done on its own. So Jeff's comment about, us not competing with each other is represented in the discussions, how others talked about everyone collaborating together towards a greater good and trying to make sure people didn't slip through the cracks, whether it was the new person at the beginning of their career or the seasoned crusty veteran at the end of their career who wished that they had this training earlier. It sounds like these programs across the board have those components, as well as designated champions or master trainers or resilience performance officers that are really leading the charge for these changes that our first responder brothers and sisters significantly deserve. So Thank you all again for taking time out of your day to take part in this. We really hope that you will follow up on the website for the information that you're seeking, and that you will share this on social media, tagging it again at Resilience Simp for Symposium on Twitter, or hashtagging with other social media platforms, hashtag Police Resilience. Thank you so much, everyone.